All right, let's jump right into this explainer and start building your intellectual self-defense toolkit. Look, we've all been there, right? Walking away from a conversation feeling totally drained, twisted around, or just completely misunderstood. Well, today we're putting a stop to that. We're going to learn exactly how to expose logical weaknesses, demand real evidence, and gracefully sidestep those sneaky verbal traps that people try to set for us pretty much every single day.
Have you ever felt boxed into one of those frustrating arguments where the other person clearly isn't even listening? Like, they're just waiting for their turn to talk back. You can literally see it in their eyes. They aren't digesting a single word you're saying. They're just mentally tossing your words aside to prep their next counterattack. It's exhausting, it's demoralizing, and frankly, it's a massive waste of your time. But to defend ourselves from this whole dynamic, we first have to understand the underlying mechanics of what's actually happening in these interactions.
Section 1. The real motive behind arguing. To really start, we need to understand the true battlefield here and identify what's actually happening when people clash with words.
Because as you'll see, there is a massive difference between a discussion and an argument. A genuine discussion, that's about testing ideas together. It's collaborative, and the ultimate goal is mutual understanding. But arguing? Well, arguing is merely protecting one's ego. And it goes even deeper. If someone is just trying to impress an audience with how loud or witty they can be, that's just a performance. But the second they try to distract, exhaust, or insult you, that is outright manipulation. Honestly, recognizing which game the other person is playing in real time is your absolute first line of defense.
So the crucial move before you engage in any debate is to rigorously define the premise. Take a statement like, cars are dangerous. If someone throws it at you, what do they actually mean? Do they mean all cars everywhere? Do they mean the people driving them? Or maybe they mean cars are dangerous in specific weather conditions. You've got to ask them to clarify. See, when a manipulator leaves a premise intentionally vague, they're trying to trap you in an emotional response rather than a logical debate. If your discussion is built on a vague feeling, well, the outcome is going to be just as vague and completely useless to you.
Moving on to Section 2, Distinguishing Facts from Values. Let's look at a classic tactic manipulators use to trap us, confusing what is real with what they simply feel.
You absolutely must separate these three elements in any conversation. Facts are rooted in objective reality. Values are internal things that are important to you, like morals or social beliefs, and preferences are simply things you happen to like. Now, the reason this distinction is your ultimate shield is because manipulators will constantly weaponize their personal values and try to present them as objective facts. While facts can be used as hard evidence, debating someone's internal values or preferences, that literally leads nowhere.
Think of it this way. You can point at a cloud in the sky to prove it's white. That's a fact, rooted in reality. It exists independently of you, so it's a great objective tool for proof. But you can't use a personal value, like I need to be on time, as objective proof for a wider argument. Say someone argues that waking up early is objectively superior and their only proof is you must be on time. That's completely useless in a debate. That's just their internal value system talking. A much better fact-based argument would be something like, traffic is mathematically lighter at 6 a.m. See the difference? That one is rooted in reality.
And then we have preferences, which, to be honest, are even less helpful. If someone bases their entire argument on a personal preference, like claiming red fire is objectively stronger simply because they happen to like the color red, you're dealing with ego, not evidence. Why do people argue preferences so aggressively? It's because their ego is deeply tied to their tastes. When this happens, your best move is to just gracefully shut it down. Simply say, I'm glad you enjoy that, but we can't really measure it. Always make sure your own arguments are rooted in reality, and whatever you do, don't get sucked into debating what someone else merely prefers.
Section 3. Escaping the proof trap. Let's tackle the sneaky ways people try to shift the responsibility of evidence right onto your shoulders. Remember this unbreakable rule of intellectual self-defense. Confidence is not proof. Just because someone loudly and confidently claims that dreams predict reality based on some random single personal coincidence, that doesn't make it a repeatable, testable fact. Loud confidence is actually a really common manipulation tactic designed to intimidate you so you drop your demand for proof. They might be incredibly self-assured because it happened to them, sure, but coincidence does not prove a concept. Always hold the line and demand objective evidence when someone's extreme confidence stems from just one isolated experience.
Oh man, have you ever had someone make a totally wild claim like, never trust people, and then instantly spring this trap on you? Prove to me that I'm wrong. The very second you accept that challenge, you've fallen right into their trap. They've just shifted the entire burden of proof off of their own shoulders, where it actually belongs, and dumped it squarely onto yours.
Think about it like being in a courtroom.
The burden of proof is always on the accuser to provide evidence first. Only then do you have to defend your counterarguments. The court doesn't ask you to prove you didn't commit a crime first. So in a debate, if someone throws a wild statement at you, don't let them fluster you. Just politely but firmly hand that burden of proof right back. Tell them, prove to me that what you're saying is correct first, and then I'll show you why you might be wrong. More often than not, they can't even prove their initial point, and you win without even breaking a sweat.
Section 4. Spotting Verbal Manipulation Tactics. Here are some quick-fire tactics to help you dodge bad logic like a superhero avoiding traps. Pay close attention because I guarantee you'll start noticing these everywhere.
First, watch out for absolutes. Words like impossible, definitely, or everyone. These are actually incredibly easy to dismantle if you just don't panic. If someone insists it is completely impossible for video games to harm you, you literally only need one single, isolated exception to destroy their entire argument. If someone says everyone loves white or nobody likes shawarma, you can instantly shatter their sweeping generalization by just saying, well, actually, I don't. Boom, argument dismantled. Absolutes are, without a doubt, a manipulator's weakest tool.
Next up, never ever confuse correlation with causation. Let's say someone argues that fast cars are inherently dangerous, and their proof is data showing that as horsepower increases, traffic fatalities increase. But hold on a second. Higher horsepower might correlate with accidents, but the actual direct cause of the danger is reckless driving or a lack of skill. The horsepower is just sitting there in the engine. It's merely a correlated factor. Why do manipulators use correlation? Because it's intellectually lazy, but it sounds incredibly convincing to an untrained ear. Always distinguish between two things simply happening at the same time versus one actually causing the other. And hey, if you successfully point out their bad logic, watch out for this next trick. Say you disprove their point about horsepower, and they suddenly derail the whole conversation to start complaining about tire friction or road quality. Stop them right there. That is called expanding the scope or moving the goalposts. You have to set a firm boundary. When they do this, hold your ground. Simply say, we can talk about tire friction later, but right now we are discussing horsepower. Force the focus back to the original premise.
Section 5. The power of smart questions. So why do smart questions work so incredibly well when you're dismantling weak logic?
Well, they shift the spotlight and the pressure back onto the other person's framework. But before we get to asking those questions, you've got to realize that you can't ask a smart question if your own foundation is weak. Building a strong stance is the absolute prerequisite to flipping the script on an opponent. Saying standardized testing is useless is a weak stance. It's too vague. It's an easy target. But a strong stance? That sounds more like this. Standardized testing determines a student's future based solely on pattern recognition, completely ignoring crucial factors like personal circumstances, social skills, and practical abilities. When your viewpoint is that detailed and well-constructed, it becomes incredibly hard for anyone to just casually break or dismiss it.
Once your stance is strong, that's when you go on the offensive with questions. By asking a highly targeted question like, between horsepower and reckless driving, which one do you think contributes more to fatal accidents? You naturally force the other person to confront the glaring weaknesses in their own argument. A smart question works perfectly because it forces the manipulator to do all the intellectual heavy lifting. It removes your need to attack entirely, forcing them to systematically dismantle their own trap out loud.
Section 6. Winning by walking away. Finally, and this is probably the most important part of this entire playbook, you have to know when a battle simply isn't worth fighting at all.
Keep a really sharp eye out for these massive red flags. If you're talking to someone who constantly shifts the topic the exact moment you get the upper hand, take note. If they abandon the topic to attack your personal character or your intelligence instead of your idea, that is a huge indicator of manipulation. If they demand evidence but then completely ignore it when you finally provide it, or if they constantly apply double standards, recognize what is happening right in front of you. This person has a deep-seated resistance to being wrong. They're entering the conversation with the sole mindset of forcing you to listen to them while completely refusing to extend that same courtesy to you.
So how do you actually win against someone who just wants to hear themselves talk? You don't engage. If they attack your character, they're just protecting their fragile ego and looking for a fight. If you walk away from that conversation, you have already won. You walk away knowing you've protected your most valuable asset, your peace of mind. I mean, why waste your precious energy on someone who is only waiting for their turn to reply? Protect your logic, demand evidence, and above all, protect your peace. So let me leave you with this. The next time someone tries to drag you into a bad faith argument, how will you use your new toolkit to disarm them?